way too much so. Remind me to frequently pause, to notice where kindness touches my life, and for opportunities to extend that kindness. When strong emotions drift into my peace, and attempt to defeat what generates joy, turn my attention toward the kinship I have with millions of people who made it through what threatened to destroy their spirit. If there is little I can do to alleviate injustice and the horrific crimes committed against humanity, with your assistance, I continue to do what I can to bring about good, no matter how minor it may seem. Resiliency, Holy Spirit, you are abiding within me, strengthening my waiting hope, and kindling my being with your radiant eyes and unwavering love. This happened, I reach out again for the gift of hope. May this precious virtue be the anchor in my heart.
Mary, Queen of the Apostles,
Pray for us.
So we are coming to the end of our celebration of the Jubilee year, sisters, and we look into how we have journeyed thus far in this year, through the monthly recollections. We try to journey deeper into the reality of the Jubilee year with the theme Pilgrims of Hope, and we reflected on themes that would allow us to enter into detail of what the Jubilee year is about, and also to understand better and to enter more deeply into the spirit of the Jubilee year. And so our journey thus far has been this. We reflected on the Jubilee in the Bible. We also reflected on the motto, Pilgrims of Hope, on the Jubilee hymn, and then the pilgrimage and the Holy Door, the Jubilee logo and prayer, Pilgrims of Hope with St. Paul, reconciliation and indulgence, and then the profession of faith. We also looked into charity and works of mercy in this Jubilee year, and we also looked into Jubilee of consecrated life, and then hope in the mind of Napoleon. And finally, as we come to the end, we look into the PDDM as Pilgrims of Hope. Which means we want to look into, we try to zoom out to see the bigger picture, and wider implications of the Jubilee year for all believers. And this time we want to zoom in and zero in on us, ourselves. So we try to look into what is the invitation of all this for us. PDDM, Pilgrims of Hope. So what is the invitation? How do we move forward from here? And so what is our takeaway after all those reflections on the Jubilee year? And so we ask questions. How do we move forward? What is hope for us? What gives us hope? And so where do we go to in order to find an anchor for this journey of moving forward? So certainly we have our rule of life, as our guide in our itinerary of discipleship. But if we look at our rule of life, and if we look at the index, there is no entry about hope. There is no entry about hope. So would that mean that the rule of life doesn't speak about hope? So how are we to walk as PDDMs, as Pilgrims of Hope. So I would propose, sisters, I pick up one article in the Rule of Life that I believe would speak of what hope would be for us, PDDM. And this is Article 5 of the Rule of Life. And it says, the founding event of our congregation develops within the church through episodes that bear the seal of the cross. Father James Alverione initially establishes the disciples of the Divine Master as distinct and separate from the daughters of St. Paul. However, due to various canonical procedures, they are joined under one single degree of approval. The intervention of the founder of Mother Scholastica and the life offering of Father Timothy Giancarlo all contribute to the ecclesial and institutional recognition of the congregation. So if you look at it, sisters, now our history, our life story as a congregation, and I believe our own story as individual members of this congregation is marked by the seal of the cross. But it doesn't mean that everything is there, because we are here. And the congregation continues to live and flourish, and we all carry with us the gift of the charism. We all nurture and safeguard this charism and share this with others. So which means here we can already see this hope. We can only see like cross, but it does not end. So there is hope. And I believe, especially this last part, the intervention of the founder of Mother Scholastica and the life offering of Giancarlo will also, in a way, make us see what kind of hope, what was that which made them hold on to hope all through these years of our journey. So I would, in a way, run down briefly, not the whole history of the congregation, but briefly the process, the complex process of the approval of the congregation and how Maestro Mother Scholastica lived it. So we can see also what was the quality of hope that we were living, because this is supposed to be what we are doing in living our life now. So quickly, the intervention of the founder. The first request for the approval of the family as it is, which means Society of St. Paul, Daughters of St. Paul, and us, it was 1926. Request for the approval of the family as it is, so male and female. Because also Maestro had this idea of the Cotolengo family that were all together. And we know that this was not approved. So if you notice, sisters, now there is a yearly intervention. So which means if this one is not approved, so Maestro is trying to find a way. So 1926, the request for the approval of the family as it is, male and female. 1927, request only for one female institute, not two branches, because that was also questioned. Only one female institute with two branches. But we know that that one was not approved. So 1928, you see, there was no stopping. There was no stopping. And February 1928, another request to clarify the difference in habits. Because we know also from the very beginning that we already had habits. So to clarify the habits, and it's not a sign of two classes, because there was the distinction of first class, second class, and we were called second class. But to clarify that it's not a distinction of classes, but of the different tasks that we 1928, another request. Only one name for female institutes. Because of course, that complexity of the entities there, that was not understood. So only one name for female institutes. And that is why in December of 1928, there was already the Nulla Osta. Nulla Osta means nothing hinders the direction of the notice of St. Paul. So there was this decree in December 1928, and then in 1929, there was already that canonical direction. But look at what your maestro says. For Alberione, Father Alberione says, he will talk. This is recorded in the minutes of the meeting, council meeting of the Daughters of St. Paul. Father Alberione says, he will talk to the congregation for religious again, for the approval of the wise disciples. So Primo Maestro, who was the one who received the carousel, knew within his heart that this is supposed to be a different congregation. Also because Primo Maestro was not just pursuing a dream, personal dream. We know that since 1908, he began to pray and have prayers said. We know this. So which means he was carrying out of this in prayer and also allowing himself to be accompanied by his spiritual director. So in 1908, he prayed. He began to pray and have prayers said. This is our famous line. And then we know that in 1920, Primo Maestro left the seminary to devote himself only to these foundations that they started. And upon the advice of Canonical Chiesa, his spiritual director, he was told, actually Primo Maestro was told by Canonical Chiesa, to assure yourself of a group who will pray for these initiatives, apostolic initiatives. And so Primo Maestro, already in 1920, he thought of a religious family who will devote themselves, who would remain in adoration before the tabernacle to obtain the necessary graces for the apostolate. So even before we were born, that was already there, and Primo Maestro has already been continuously praying over that. And so when we see Primo Maestro saying, I will talk to the congregation again, it was not just because he wanted to pursue a personal dream, but because he is carrying with him something that is born out of prayer. And then there was a kind of pause, and in 1945, Primo Maestro started to draft a text of the constitutions for the wise disciples to be attached to that request again to the Holy See. And in that year, 1945, he called Mother Scholastica to Rome to write the directive. Primo Maestro was trying to draft the constitutions. He asked Mother Scholastica to write the directive. Also because, before there was no written rule. But Mother Scholastica was always the leader of the group, and Primo Maestro would even say, for those who want to become pious disciples and who wants to ask, how is it to become pious disciple? He would say, look at Scholastica. So Scholastica became like a living rule before there was a written rule for us. So Mother Scholastica was held in Rome to write the directory. In fact, Mother Scholastica, Mother Scholastica is not educated. She did not have any preparation. So she was in a way pleading, please ask somebody to help me. And she was saying, if I were in Alba, I would have many other people to ask to write this. But that was the will of the founder, is for him to be in Rome and to write. And so Scholastica entrusted that to the work of the Spirit and the life which is lived. Primo Maestro also guided the congregation from the very beginning. And then during the time so July, August 1945, Primaestro also asked Scholastica to visit all the houses of the Pious disciples, where they were, to have a report, so that when he submits the application, the request, there is that. And Mother Scholastica fulfilled this task, writing, and then even including collaboration with the houses of the Society of St. But what happened? When this was submitted, this was not also approved. This was not also approved. And we know that it is in... this is very interesting, sisters, because the end of 1945, December 1945 until towards the end of April, Primaestro was out of Italy. He was in the US for a visit with Leticia. And we know this famous story that Mother Scholastica, because Primaestro also left a word to Jakarta to follow up, and Father Itinerary, to follow up this process. And Mother Scholastica, we know that in 1946, 1945 was not approved. And then around April of 1946, Madrid, because they Primaestro and Leticia returned towards the end of April. Our history says, in April of 1946, Mother Scholastica went to follow this up in secret publication. And you see, you can imagine already, like, Mother Scholastica, how could she be admitted to the Vatican if she has no purpose, legitimate purpose? But that one was taken as a subversive act. And so she was accused that this one is just wanting to divide the group, and so she is. And so that was when Mother Scholastica was exiled in the Villa San Giuseppe. The Villa San Giuseppe is just across our house in Pugliese. It was the house of the Society of St. Paul. And when I was with the juniors before preparing for perpetual profession, that house now is no longer with the SSP. It is already a Casa de Cura for the aging. Before it was there, the provincial house was still there. I used to bring this group of juniors there, just to let them see this was where Mother Scholastica was exiled. And it's like a guard house. One brother would always say, here, Mother Scholastica, who was a saint, was here. And remember, this is from 1924, Mother Scholastica was the one guiding the congregation. And in 1946, doon na siya nilagay sa guard house. And I will always remember the brother saying, you see, who would want to live in that? Small house there like a guard house. What your mother was the same. The brother is the same. And he said, he was living there, and he was not closing herself there, lamenting and crying. She was feeding the chicken around and doing gardening. So that spirit, even if she was exiled, even if she was accused, and she was doing what she was asked to do, actually, and what she was supposed to do, she was not sulking. So that kind of hope that Mother Scholastica also was holding on. And so when Primaestro came back towards the end of April, so Primaestro made another request towards the end of April 1946. June 1946, Primaestro made another request. And the response, it was denied. We got the response in August of 1946, and that was denied. And what did Primaestro say? Primaestro said, this is what he said, nothing is sweeter than obeying. He said, but at the same time, together with those who collaborated with him, he initiated the search for the will of God for the Pious disciples. So he also sent Father Jacobo to Milan to consult of Cardinal Schuster. Cardinal Schuster is a Benedictine who offered some full advice. We are, especially Timothy Jacardo is close to Cardinal Schuster because when Alberione asked Jacardo to go to Rome, they established themselves there around St. Paul and there was Cardinal Schuster. And so, in fact, the advice of Cardinal Schuster actually was, in a way, make another request and pass it through. There is a particular sister who is working in the congregation. And pass it through her and make your own proper documentation. So they were trying to do what they can do. It doesn't mean, sisters, no, like this is the decision. It doesn't mean that they're disobeying. But they were trying to, discern, search for the will of God for this congregation. Because the maestro from the beginning was convinced about that. And of course, who would understand that if not the maestro who received the heresy? So, it says, he did not disobey the church, but welcomed this decree as a tool for his service. There are many situations, experiences that we will go through, and then we just close ourselves, and that's the end. But for the maestro, it was a tool for discernment, for reviewing what had been done for the past disciples for more than 20 years. This is 1946. We started 1924, so more than 20 years. And he spoke and confided in Father Jacardo in particular, seeking a way out. And that's why Father Jacardo closely followed us. Not only apostolic, but especially in our spirituality, in our formation. And this is from the handwritten notes of Jacardo, diary of Jacardo. October, the denial came August. This is the diary of Jacardo, October 1946. It says, today, Primo Maestro told me, this thing of the pious disciples will turn out well. But that is not hope. The Divine Master will make it successful, even if he would have to perform a great miracle. And he said, you will tell this to the teachers. Maestro, the superiors before were called Maestro in our congregation. And me. So if this is not hope, and then this is 1946. And you see, sisters, in 1946, we also received a visitator from the Vatican. And the visitator, a Franciscan, was also a wise man. He was not only depending on the documents, especially from the Vatican, but he talked to the sisters. And he observed the life, and he talked to the sisters. And he saw the reality. So in the end, he was trying also to encourage. And that's why you see, 1946, January of 1947, the process resumes. And you see now the dates, now it was not, because like when Mother Scholastica was exiled in Villa San Giuseppe, like there was the order from the Vatican, but you see, the Daughters of St. Paul, they were approved in 1929. There was the order 1928 and then the election 1929. And the canonical degree of pontifical approval is 1943. And at that time, for this Mother Scholastica was told, no, there was this degree that you see, you open another process for another, only after 6 years. But this one every year. Every year. And you see, January 1947, the process resumes. And look at that, sisters, January and April, we already received the system. 1947. 1948, the year after, already, pontifical approval, less than 17 months after being declared juridically dead, because that was August 1946, and just 9 months after being established as an institute of diocesan life, April 3, 1946. So you see, we can see here, no? We can, if we do not have that perspective of faith, and we can say, how stubborn is this man? How stubborn is this man, insisting on his own? And we know that because of that, Prima Maestro was also called someone who was. But Prima Maestro did these things from prayer. He was not just insisting and commanding everybody and it should be this or that. No. Everything was a fruit. And everything was a fruit of also allowing himself to be guided by his spiritual director. So you see, 1948, we were already approved. This was already pontifical approval. So if we have to look at that, sisters, now, 1948, no? If we were to put ourselves in the place of Prima Maestro, what would we have done? If you were Prima Maestro, what would you have done? How many times they were going back and forth to the Dominicans? So if you were Prima Maestro, what would you have done? And then we look into the interventions of Mother Scholastica, which were usually experiences of exiles. Oh, ano na yung mga exile? Ayaw natin ma-isolate mo lang ako. Ito, exile na experience ito. No? So if we have to look into the life story, we know, okay, we were founded in 1924, so we were already there together with the Daughters of St. Paul. And in 1936, we know that we did not have a name of our own yet. We were carrying the name, juridical name of the Daughters of St. Paul. But Prima Maestro continued to follow us up with the directives, the apostolate and formation, especially also through Jakarta. And we know that in 1936, we do not know what really happened there. There was confusion in the house. Mother Scholastica was removed from ANTA. No, she was removed. So from October of 1936, Mother Scholastica no longer responsible for the rule of the Christ disciples. Actually, exile also very subtle. Mother Scholastica was called to Rome and then sent to Egypt. So October she was in Rome and then November she left for Egypt. But you see, when she's being removed, she was sent to Egypt, a kind of exile, but in a way, a fruitful one who started community there. And you see, in Egypt, Mother Scholastica did not just love him there. We know how she was very fruitful in Egypt. In fact, meron na rin from Egypt with her relationship with people who were not really Catholics. And in fact, because it's a Muslim reality, we also have this story that they were trying to accuse Mother Scholastica or do something to Mother Scholastica, and the head of the group says, no, she is doing something good for us. So you see how Mother Scholastica also, we have seen how Prima Maestro did also this, but also Mother Scholastica. This is 1936. And only 2 years, Mother Scholastica was called back. Because in Alba, the situation did not get better. When she was accused of maybe creating confusion or whatever, it did not get better. Things were not resolved. We know that when Mother Scholastica was taken from Alba, the daughter of St. Paul, remember the name? Teresa Ravallo. You were entrusted to Teresa Ravallo. But things were not resolved and things got worse. And so Mother Scholastica was called back again, just 2 years in Egypt, called back again, and returned to power. Mother Scholastica would have complaining, you see, your movie there, why are you taking back again? Our usual refrain. You just transferred me there, now why are you bringing me back? She returned. And she resumed the office, the post, and the office she held for so long. Mother Scholastica. And then in 1945, we have seen this now, she was asked to write the director, our director. But we know that in 1946 she was already exiled, she was sent to Villa San Giuseppe, and she was sent to France. She was sent to France. You know, in France, they have, in the garden at the back, there is a small corner that they planted with grass, no? Like this, one small corner. And the old sisters, the sisters who were there in the time of the maestro, they used, when I went there, they used to tell me, you pray there. That was the spot where Mother Scholastica used to stay and pray. And they planted one corner of the garden in France. So, 1946, so Mother Scholastica, exiled in Villa San Giuseppe. And we know that this is April, we know that June, Maestro, after coming back from the US, talking to the one in charge in the congregation there, June presented another request. And that request actually, we got the response in August. And Mother Scholastica received the news, she was in exile, she was in France, received the news September 1946. And when Scholastica received the news from exile, you look at this, sisters, she expressed her certainty of the identity of PDDM and of all that she had received and transmitted. Which means the spirit that her master has transmitted, she has invited her to transmit. She was certain, even if you see how many degrees of denial already now. And he said, and this is her, this is from her notes, this is what she wrote to her master. I have always tried to do my best and to be a faithful spokesperson for the souls entrusted to me. So she was taking responsibility. They are many, and may the Lord be thanked for that. They were accepted, formed, and have worked with the spirit proper to the wise disciples. We know that by this time our name is not so simple. And so she's insisting, they were accepted, they were formed, they have worked in the spirit of wise disciples. A spirit that you have so often described as different from that of the daughters of Satan. And she says, now, in the blink of an eye, it is being changed. They are being forced to abide by the legislation they never freely consented. This is September 9th. This is Mother Scholastica. But you see how providence also works in the life of our congregation. When we were already approved as the Diocesan Institute in 1947, pretty much Mother Scholastica was recognized for what she had, not only for what she has done, but for what she has lived as a PDDM. So by the express will of the founder and with the approval of the visitator. Because the visitator who came, a Franciscan, she talked to the sisters, she observed the situations. Kaya napagalitin yung ating process afterwards. With the approval of the visitator representing the Holy See, Mother Scholastica is recognized as the first former superior general, which is actually due her, because she was the one. So, if you look at that, this is Mother Scholastica. These are the interventions of Mother Scholastica. And if I were Mother Scholastica, what would have I done? If I were Mother Scholastica, tinanggal ako sa alba at tinanggal. Siguro nagreklamo ayaw ko naman dyan. And when she was exiled in the Villa St. Joseph, what would have I done? If this is not home, what is this? What do you call this? And we look at the offering of Jakarta. We know that when there was a decree of death, we were entrusted particularly also to Jakarta. This is from the diary of Jakarta, when we had the diocesan approval. It says, Blessed Jesus, on this Holy Thursday, you know that was Holy Thursday. On this Holy Thursday, on this natal day of the Eucharist and of the priesthood and of the liturgy, you have granted me, like Saint Joseph, to welcome from the bosom of the Virgin Church your pious disciples of the Divine Master. So if we will read into those lines, it's like Maestro Japan is saying, you know, I was trying to labor to give birth to this congregation. And so it's saying, you know, you have granted me to welcome from the bosom of the Virgin Church your pious disciples of the Divine Master in their juridical, spiritual, mystical birth, who were born from your love, in your love, for your love, to a new and full life, for the devotion to the Divine Master, to be the sisters of the Eucharist, of the priesthood of the liturgy. So also Jakarta was very clear about that. It's very clear. And you see, you would imagine, you know, when Alberione entrusted us to Jakarta, and how Jakarta really took that on. How painful would that have been? What would have sustained these people, if not him? A very difficult story and painful story. And then in January 12, 1948, when we were already approved with the pontifical approval, Jakarta was celebrating his last mass on that day. Because he would die a few days after. So, a kind of confirmation of his own life offering. No, and that's why I was choosing that article on the rule of life, because it says there, our life story is marked by the seal of the cross. The life story of these people, our mothers, fathers in the congregation, the vocation, marked by the seal of the cross, was ended in triumph, in victory. That was also the day Jakarta celebrated his last mass. When we received. So again, if you look at this, no, I were there, if I were the one, what have I done? So, if these people did not do what they were doing, where would we be now? Where would the pious disciples be now? So from this, sisters, what can we gather? Maybe this, sisters, hope is not cheap. It is a fire that burns away illusions. Pwede sabihin natin din in the beginning, they have this idealism and illusions. Nothing of that will happen. Hope is the fire that burns away illusions. It is a demanding pilgrimage. So in the end, sisters, now, hope costs. If it does not cost, it is not hope. Hope costs. But hope also co-creates community. You remember when I was trying to, talk, work with those who collaborated with him, to discern and find a way. Search for the will of God in all things happen. So hope also creates community, and hope also transforms if we allow ourselves. So hope, sister, hope costs because hope is not just a fleeting feeling. It challenges us to live not just for survival, because if those people were just trying to survive, we would not be here, but for meaning. Even when the world frowns at us. Maestro was considered by the people around someone who was out of his mind. Even if the world frowns at us, to choose purpose when despair asks us to surrender. First and to find meaning in giving even when we feel empty. This is what our scholastic was doing for us. The real mother to us. Giving even when there was nobody giving. So hope does not settle for cheap grace. And then we have seen how hope also co-creates community, because hope doesn't stay isolated. With all those difficult stages of the process, Pre Maestro, Mother Scholastica, Maestro Jacardo, they did not isolate themselves. They were trying to gather and see together. So hope draws others in and build each other up. It overflows into a shared mission that builds community. This is hope. So the love of Christ indwells us. Personal faith becomes a communal witness as hope kindles fire from one heart to another. Kasi hindi mo pwede mapatay eh. It is life in itself, and so it moves. It moves. And it affects others. So you see, the collaboration that we see in Pre Maestro, when there was a decree. Together with those who collaborated with him. If that was not hope, he would not isolate. So a Jubilee pilgrimage, sisters, is not a solitary commitment, but a shared journey. We have seen the whole year meditations, different meditations on the Jubilee. The Jubilee, the pilgrimage, the Jubilee year is not a solitary endeavor, but a shared journey. And so is our pilgrimage journey as well. We will not journey just to save ourselves. Because somebody else has already paid for our life. Jesus Christ, Mother's Last. And because it is a shared journey, sisters, it demands that we cultivate a sense of shared responsibility. Also because the charism is a gift that we receive as a congregation. Each one of us receive that, to nurture that, to nourish that, and to share that, not to be kept alone. And so it also demands that we cultivate a sense of shared responsibility and mutual support. Because if this shared responsibility is not there, we will just be pointing at each other and blaming each other. But hope builds persons. So we build each other in hope and resurrection. And of course, because it is shared, there is also shared vulnerability. We cannot journey together and share the journey together. Just happy and good. Shared vulnerability Not just giving advice, but really sharing the growth. And vulnerability is not easy. We know that, no? It is not easy because for us, we always take vulnerability as weakness. But vulnerability is actually a space where communion also is born. And then hope transforms. Because hope transforms shattered dreams. Like if you think of Remaster, if you think of Mother's Scholastica, their dreams were already shattered. And their ego, Mother's Scholastica, think of that. And the ego of Mother's Scholastica, she's been leading this group for more than 20 years and she will just be taken. But just because of an accusation that we do not know if it's really true or not. In Alba. And then the exile when Vatican just accused her of being subversive. And so hope transforms shattered dreams and bruised ego into a mission. You see, Mother Scholastica was exiled in Egypt. He took it as an opportunity for mission, and it was fruitful. Into a mission that transcends the confines of our personal projects and dreams. Real hope dares to look at what is broken in us and still believes that God is laboring there. The Master said, I will talk to the congregation again. God is laboring there. So hope is not naive optimism. It does not deny the wounds that shape our journeys. With conviction, it looks straight into what is broken and even says, even here, that is working. Even here, that is working. And even now, God renews. Hope transforms. This is what the Master says about hope. He says, the transforming action of the Holy Spirit in us believers, which open us to faith to the point of adhering completely to God. So with our faith, we adhere completely to God. But, you see, the transforming action assures us of continuous assistance and grace. So there is that sense of continuous assistance. So that is the promise that one hopes also. Assures us of continuous assistance and grace to reach the ultimate goal. This is what the Maestro has done. This is what Maestro has done. Holding on to the cross and experiencing the assurance of continuous assistance and grace. But I think, sisters, in the end, ultimately, hope is a school of loving surrender. Hope is a school of loving surrender. If that was not in your Maestro, if that was not in Maestro Scholastica, if that was not in Chicago, congregation will not live. And surrender is not easy, sisters. We do not want to surrender. Also because there are different needs. Needs about surrender. One way could be, if I surrender, I will not be able to do what I want and what I desire, so I will not be happy. That is one way about surrender. But if we think about it, sisters, even if we are able to do what we really want to do, are we really happy? So that is one myth. Another myth about surrender is, if I will surrender, I will not have control. And if I will not have control, that is a very big sense of insecurity. Not really. But if you look at reality, sisters, we do not have control over everything. How many things in life that we want to control and we cannot? So this is another myth is, if I I always believe hope is really a school of loving surrender. We always want, we always desire loving service, and it's true. And it's good. But loving service, I believe, sisters, is a fruit of loving surrender. If there is no loving surrender, there will be no loving service. Because if there is loving surrender, there will always be loving service. And so, sisters, this is what we are called as pilgrims of hope. Because, sisters, we are not tourists of faith. Hindi mga turista, sabihin natin, turista ng pananampalataya. We are not tourists of faith, but we are pilgrims who dare to be transformed. And to be pilgrims of hope is to be schooled in loving surrender. And so, as pilgrims of hope, sisters, PDDM as pilgrims of hope, let us ignite our way forward in that journey. Which means the way forward from here is to allow ourselves to be schooled in loving surrender. And I was thinking, sisters, like we are already in the final days of Advent, a few days more, and we will be celebrating Christmas. This morning, Father was also asking, how is our preparation for Christmas? Hope actually is the cornerstone of Advent, because we are hoping for the Savior to come, and we renew our hope as promises and trust in His name. And so because of this, sisters, I was thinking, let this be our own final preparation for Christmas. And for this, I would propose we look into the figure of Joseph. We are so used to associating Advent preparation with Mary, and that is true. Mary also is a very important. But Joseph is one who is not often mentioned, one who is not overlooked, one who is overlooked, one who is not always mentioned. But I believe, sisters, Joseph has so much to say to us as we begin. And Joseph, very interesting also, no? Tomorrow is the last Sunday of Advent, and the Gospel is in Joseph. The Annunciation of Joseph. And if you look at the Gospel, you cannot see a word, you cannot hear a word from Joseph. Joseph was silent. Joseph was a silent person. But the silence of Joseph was not because he was ignorant, he was passive, he was indifferent, but he was attentively listening. And maybe that's why I'm saying there is a very close connection with that, with our own charism as PDDM sisters, because our first rule was silence. And the silence that was given to us was not just about not talking. What about listening? Listening to God. And that was what Joseph did. And in fact, sister, this is very interesting. During the time of trial for us, 1946, 1947, Primo Maestro more often gave meditations to the wise disciples. And these were recorded. These were the ipsum audite. Ipsum audite means listen to him. So these were recorded and eventually also written. And ito yung ating APD ngayon, sisters, to the wise disciples. That's why if you look at APD, the first volume is 1946. And the maestro is ipsum audite. Listen to him. That was Joseph. He listened. This is the one. Meditations of Alberione, 1946, 1947. The founder accomplished the glimmers of light concerning the process of the past disciples. From December 1946, the decree of death was almost not 1946. Meaningful meditations became increasingly frequent, some written before being spoken. Others corrected for printing of leaflets to be distributed to all households. They were collected in volumes ipsum ambi. Now in the opera ambi. To the houses. These were the very first printed copies of ipsum ambi. We still have, I think we still have in the library with the title itself, ipsum ambi. And then Joseph surrendered in obedience. Like Joseph was considered a just man. And initially being justice, he would this of Mary, not to shame her. So that was his sense of justice. But in the end, he turned out into letting go of his plan, but embracing the greater plan. That was good. And then also Joseph wrestled in fear. He was afraid. But what assured him? The words of the angels do not ever. What assured him, Maestro? Fear not. Fear not. And then when Joseph awoke from the dream, he took Mary and Jesus with him. So he moved forward and embrace the future no longer defined by fear or by convention, the law, which the law says this, but by the presence of Jesus. Because it was the presence of Jesus, this boy who was to be born, Emmanuel, that was what sustained him and also Mary. And therefore a journey that leads us into a covenant of humbly. And that's why for me, Joseph was this very close parallelism with our lives. And then, you see, sisters, Joseph also shows us that covenant of trust, that sense of hoping, which is a loving surrender. Fear often comes when our plans are overturned, because it becomes very scary. I do not know. With the reassurance of the angel Joseph, do not be afraid. Joseph found the humility. So maybe there also an invitation on it. We can always have our own vulnerability, but when we feel the assurance, do not be afraid. Let us hope that we can also find that humility instead of rebelling and continue doing our way. Humility to trust. To walk with God. Without saying anything, Joseph's life spoke of covenantal fidelity. By taking Mary and Joseph into his home, Joseph fully entered into God's plan of salvation. And his fidelity safeguarded the mystery of the incarnation, the coming of Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us. And so we move forward in hope, sisters. PDDM, as Pilgrims of Hope, we move forward in hope because Christ is with us. This is the I am with you that we are always holding on to. This is the promise that will see us through in our journey. And the Eucharist is the perpetual anthem. The Eucharist is here with us. Continuous coming of Christ to us. And so we are all called to journey together in hope, for we have been given a promise, the constant presence of Jesus, and the constant assurance not to be afraid. And I quoted here very interestingly, because Pope Francis had this, when he decreed the Jubilee, he said, we must fan the flame of hope that has been given us. So which means, sisters, that if you look at the take courage and, gain that impetus to move forward from this. Because hope is already in us. Hope is already given us. Ito yung theological virtues na given us na God is said. So hope is already in us. So for us is to fan into flame that gift. This is Pope Francis said, we must fan the flame of hope that has been given us and help everyone gain strength and certainty when looking to the future with an open spirit, trusting heart, and outside vision, embracing the greater vision, the greater plan. And one of the indications of the Jubilee years is from the discourse is it should be a jubilee for you when each of you shall return to his property and each of you shall return to his family. So what is this trying to tell us? The jubilee is coming home to our identity, coming home to who we are. And so as we come to the end of the Jubilee year, sisters, and we are trying to see how to move forward as pilgrims of hope, maybe let us come home to our identity as pilgrims, looking at the experiences of our humanist and our scholastic life. Because this is the spirit that has been handed to us. And this is the way we are supposed to safeguard our identity in the church. So for our reflection, sisters, and maybe for the spiritual conversations after, I am proposing you see for yourself, you see how the Spirit will move you from here. You may want to consider these questions. At this point of my life, what fills me with hope? And then, what and where in my life am I invited to trust and lovingly surrender? Sister Janice will distribute you the questions after. Because I was thinking, if you are not able to enter into this, you may just want to look into that. You may just want to look into this, sisters. What points in this reflection were significantly striking for you? And what was the invitation of that? And how do you want to respond to that invitation? If you are significantly struck by some points, you may want to stay with this question. If you would want to look into the other set of questions, so maybe we can end this reflection, sisters, echoing that assurance that has been handed on to us and continuing on until I am.